My girlfriend is a surgeon who can see exactly how much time people have left to live. She knew perfectly well that without immediate heart surgery, I only had 7 days left. Yet, she didn't hesitate to postpone my operation to take her favorite protégé on a trip to Europe. Over the phone, her tone was thick with impatience. Caleb, Julian has never been abroad before. I'm just taking him to see the world. Why are you rushing me? Don't you still have 7 days? I promise I'll be back within that week to operate on you. The success rate is 99%. You're not going to die. She hung up before I could say a word. Listening to the dial tone, I let out a bitter laugh and spoke to the interface in my mind. System, I'm filing a request to exit this world in 7 days. Elena Vance, since you're so sure of your victory, I'm determined to be that 1% failure. Hearing my request, the system's mechanical voice hesitated for the first time. The courtship mission isn't complete. If you choose to exit now, the procedure requires 7 days of preparation. During this time, the host will experience pain equivalent to 10 times the intensity of cardiac arrest as a penalty. The voice paused, detected that the target, Elena Vance, still retains a 70% affection level for the host. I suggest you reconsider. Hearing that number, 70%, I couldn't help but smirk bitterly. When I first got together with Elena, the system told me her love for me was at 70%. I naively thought that if I treated her well enough, that number would climb to 100%. For years, I racked my brain trying to please her. When she worked overnight shifts, I made homemade bone broth and delivered it to the hospital myself. When a violent patient attacked her, I shielded her with my own body, taking the knife meant for her. When her research hit a wall and she needed a specific pathology to study, I used my system points to induce heart disease in my own body, volunteering to be her experimental subject. But all my efforts amounted to nothing. The broth I made for Elena ended up in Julian's stomach just because he said it smelled good. After I took a knife for her, she was so busy comforting Julian, who was merely startled by the event, that she didn't even glance at my wound. Even after I gave myself heart disease to be her lab rat, her love for me didn't grow by a single percentage point. Instead, right in the middle of her research, with me having only a week to live, she abandoned me for a vacation just because Julian mentioned he'd never seen the Eiffel Tower. I finally understood. No matter what I did, Elena's 70% love for me would never change. In her heart, Julian Ash would always be the priority. I looked at the 9-grid photo collage Julian had just posted on Instagram. In the pictures, Elena was shopping with him, her profile looking painfully gentle. I shook my head and said to the system, no need to reconsider. Even if it hurts, I want to exit. The system sighed. It didn't try to persuade me further and initiated the exit sequence. It hadn't lied. The moment the program started, a searing pain exploded in my chest, like thousands of needles piercing my heart. Breathing became instantly impossible. I curled up on the bed, my consciousness fading. Through the haze, I saw doctors and nurses rushing into the ward, frantically starting emergency measures. Because I was Elena's specific experimental patient, only she knew the intricacies of my condition. The nurse hurriedly called Elena, explaining the critical situation. But Elena's voice over the speakerphone was dripping with annoyance. It's not a big deal. Just give him some painkillers or a sedative. He's not going to die in the next 7 days anyway. I'm having dinner with Julian. Stop bothering us. She hung up abruptly. The nurse lowered the phone, looking at my pale face on the hospital bed with pity in her eyes. I heard it all through the fog of pain. My heart ached, but I couldn't tell if it was the exit penalty or the wound she had inflicted. When the first round of the penalty finally subsided, my vitals stabilized. The medical team let out a collective breath of relief and, after stabilizing me, left the room. I thought I wouldn't see Elena again until the surgery, but the very next day, my door was slammed open. Elena stormed in, furious. She grabbed my wrist. Caleb Reed, what the hell are you trying to do? I told you I'd be back in 7 days for the surgery. Couldn't you wait? Did you have to post this online to humiliate me? I was confused until I checked my phone. The nurse who had called her yesterday had been so outraged, she posted the story on X, formerly Twitter. Now, everyone knew that Dr. Elena Vance of University Hospital had abandoned her critically ill boyfriend to tour Europe with her young protégé. The comment section was brutal. Mentor and protégé? Please, they're definitely dating on the side. Trash belongs with trash. That guy looks sleazy. Dr. Vance must be blind to leave a loyal boyfriend for someone like him. Cheaters deserve the worst. Elena was fuming. This is all your fault. Julian is so upset he's lost all interest in the trip. He dragged me back to the States overnight. Get up right now and apologize to him. I shook off her hand and said calmly, I didn't post it, and I didn't do anything wrong, so why should I apologize? Still stubborn, Elena was about to explode when Julian suddenly pushed the door open. His eyes were red, and his voice choked with tears. Elena, if Caleb doesn't want to apologize, forget it. But after being slandered like this, I don't have the face to keep living. He turned and ran out. Elena, panicked, slapped me across the face. Caleb, if anything happens to Julian, I will make your life a living hell. She chased after him. Watching her retreating back, a dense, prickly pain filled my heart. I asked the system, is the second round of punishment starting? No, the system replied, its voice sounding unusually sympathetic. That is just your heartbreaking host. I didn't respond, just clutched my chest and smiled bitterly. Suddenly, the system spoke up. Host, I suggest you go outside and take a look. Confused, I walked out of the room to find a crowd gathering in front of the inpatient tower. High above, on the rooftop edge, stood Julian Ash. One more step, and he would plummet hundreds of feet. Seeing me, Julian screamed, his eyes bloodshot. Caleb Reed, I know you're jealous of my relationship with my mentor, but you can't just ruin my reputation like this. The internet is destroying me. I have no way to explain myself. I can only prove my innocence with death. He shuffled a tiny step forward. Before I could speak, Elena rushed over and grabbed my arm, her eyes blazing with rage. It's come to this, and you still won't apologize? Is a human life worth nothing to you? I looked at her coldly. You should be saying that to yourself, shouldn't you? When I had 7 days to live, she didn't think my life was worth much. She had been in the mood to tour Europe. Now that Julian was threatening suicide, suddenly she understood the value of life. In the end, I just didn't matter compared to him. Elena clearly understood my implication. She froze, opening her mouth, but couldn't find a rebuttal. The onlookers started pressuring me. Young man, it's a matter of life and death. Just apologize. Yeah, take the high road. Don't let a tragedy happen. I ignored them and looked calmly at Elena. You can see lifespans, can't you? Can't you tell if Julian actually intends to jump? If Julian were serious, his lifespan countdown would be ticking down rapidly right now. Elena instinctively looked up at Julian. Her eyes flickered. She obviously saw something. But turning back to me, she didn't hesitate. Julian really wants to jump. It's all your fault. Apologize now. I looked at the determination in her eyes, just as the system whispered, Host, your girlfriend is lying. Julian Ash's lifespan is normal. He's not going to die today. I forced a smile. Predicted. No matter what happened, Elena would always protect Julian. Under the pressure of the crowd, I nodded. Fine. I'll apologize. I went up to the roof. Julian was standing near the edge. Seeing me approach, a smug look flashed in his eyes. In a voice only I could hear, he whispered, Caleb, I told you before. No matter what happens, Elena will always take my side. If you know what's good for you, back off and let me have her. Otherwise, you'll regret it. I ignored his taunt and said calmly, I apologize to you. I am sorry. You can come down now. Julian, annoyed that his provocation didn't get a rise out of me, smirked. Okay, come give me a hand, and I'll step down. I reached out. The moment our hands touched, he yanked me violently. Caught off guard, my center of gravity shifted forward. As I tumbled over the edge, I asked the system, am I going to die? Rest assured, host, the system replied. During the exit sequence, you cannot die from external causes. However, the pain of the exit process will be doubled. A split second before the agony hit, I closed my eyes, feeling a strange sense of relief. As I fell, I heard Julian's voice, fake sobbing above me. Caleb tried to push me. I dodged, and he fell over the edge himself. Later, in a hospital bed, someone slapped me hard. I didn't need to open my eyes to know it was Elena. No matter how easily debunked Julian's frame-up was, she would always believe him without a second thought, without ever checking the facts. Bitter anguish flooded my chest just as the second round of the exit penalty kicked in. It felt like my heart was being crushed in a hydraulic press. Every limb seized up in a spasm of agony. But my distress didn't elicit any concern from Elena. She raised her hand and slapped me again. Stop acting. You fell from the roof, sure, but the scan showed nothing but minor fractures. Don't try to play the victim to get my sympathy. She said more after that, but the pain was so deafening I couldn't hear a word. When I woke up again, I was lying on a temporary gurney in the hallway, my body feeling like it had been disassembled and put back together wrong. A nurse came to change my floor. I asked, my voice raspy, why am I out here? The nurse sighed, her tone sympathetic. When Julian came down from the roof, he accidentally twisted his ankle. Beds are scarce right now, so Dr. Vance said you could manage out here. She gave your private room to him. I laughed at myself. A habit by now. Elena, just 4 days left. During my recovery in the hallway, Elena didn't visit once. I didn't care. I endured the punishment waves, waiting for the final exit. On the day before I was to leave this world, my phone rang. It was Elena. Her tone was urgent. Caleb, where's your bed located? Before I could speak, the resident doctor doing rounds quickly gave her my location. I'm coming right now. Don't go anywhere, she said, and hung up. I was stunned. The resident smiled and said, Thor, Vance must be coming to finalize your surgical plan for tomorrow. See? She still cares about you. I twitched the corner of my mouth, but didn't correct him. Elena appeared quickly. She walked to my gurney, looking me up and down. The resident chimed in, Mr. Reed is recovering well. No major issues. Elena looked at me with disgust. He pushed someone off a roof. Of course he's fine. He's the villain. She started rummaging around my bedding. Where's that amulet I gave you? The lucky charm. You always kept it under your pillow. I thought for a moment, then pulled the charm from the drawer of the bedside card. Elena frowned deeply. You used to treasure this. Why is it in the junk drawer? I used to treasure it because it was the only gift she had given me in years. When I received it, I hoped her affection score would finally rise. It hadn't. It stayed at 70%. I didn't think it was doing much good, I said flatly. So I put it away. Elena's expression darkened, but she quickly forced a smile. Caleb, do you think playing hard to get will make me pay more attention to you? Don't dream. Julian has been having a run of bad luck because of you. Since you don't need it, I'm giving it to him. She grabbed the charm and turned to leave. The resident, confused, stopped her. Dr. Vance, aren't you going to go over the surgical plan with Mr. Reed? Elena waved her hand impatiently. Just use the standard protocol. The success rate is 99%. Nothing can go wrong. Without another glance at me, she walked away. I closed my eyes, too tired to even smile bitterly. In her eyes, my life-saving surgery was trivial. Phoenix. Elena, I hope you don't regret this. On the day of the surgery, I was wheeled into the OR, silently waiting for the final exit time. Elena was scrubbed in. Just as she was about to enter the operating theater, her phone rang. The nurse held it up. Julian's voice was clear over the speaker. Elena, I slipped in the shower. I think I broke something. Please help me. Without a second thought, Elena ripped off her sterile gown and sprinted for the door. I lay on the operating table, my heart cold as stone. I heard a young nurse whisper, Isn't Dar, Vance's boyfriend, also her key research subject? Why is she so careless with him? Another nurse replied, You don't know? This whole research project was just to help Julian get a promotion. The boyfriend is just a tool. So that was it. Even my role as a guinea pig was for Julian. I felt like an idiot. I had used my system points to give myself a terminal illness, just so she would have a subject, all to boost Julian's career. It was laughable, but thankfully I was leaving. Time ticked by. When I had 30 minutes of life remaining, Elena finally returned. She re-scrubbed, and the surgery began. It went smoothly. With 2 minutes left on my internal countdown, she finished the procedure. She looked at my projected lifespan on her visual interface, which should have been resetting, and smiled triumphantly. See? I told you wouldn't die. You're fine. But a second later, her smile froze. Her eyes widened in horror. The lifespan number she was seeing wasn't stabilizing. It was plummeting toward zero. Simultaneously, the system's voice echoed in my mind. World exit countdown initiated. 3, 2, 1. The countdown ended. My soul detached from my body. Looking down at the form covered in pale, blue surgical drapes, I felt nothing but relief. The heart that had beaten for Elena countless times finally stopped. Elena dropped to her knees beside the operating table in disbelief. She couldn't understand why a surgery with a 99% success rate had resulted in the 1% failure. Refusing to accept reality, she scrambled up and began frantic chest compressions, pressing down so hard she nearly cracked my ribs. The usually composed surgeon was shaking violently. Quick, defibrillator. Charged to 200 joules. The nurse handed her the paddles. She snatched them, placed them on my chest, and shocked me. My body convulsed. She stared at the monitor, muttering, Beat. Come on, beat. But the flat green line didn't move. My lifespan remained fixed at zero. Again, 300 joules. She screamed. The medical team looked uncomfortable. The anesthesiologist tried to intervene. Dr. Vance, that's the third shock. His pupils are fixed and dilated. There's no point in continuing. Shut up. Elena whipped around, her eyes bloodshot and terrifying. I am a lead surgeon. I say there is a point. The surgery was a success. He can't be dead. She shoved the anesthesiologist aside and shocked me again. My corpse jerked violently, but the monitor simply whined its continuous, flat tone. I floated in the air, watching her hysteria coldly. Her panic, her struggle, it all looked ridiculous to me now. She was so sure I'd live that she wasted my last 7 days. She never cared when I was alive. Now that I was dead, she finally cared. Too late. She raised the paddles again, but the head nurse grabbed her wrist firmly. Dr. Vance, stop. Let him go. He's gone. You'll only desecrate the body. I know you did your best. Other staff crowded around, gently pulling her away from the table. Tears crashed onto the floor as she babbled. Impossible. How could he die? He wouldn't leave me. Finally dragged into the hallway, she seemed to lose all her strength. She slid down the wall to the floor, buried her face in her hands, and began to shake. A low whimper turned into a gut-wrenching wail of despair and regret. Memories flooded her mind. She remembered the late-night soups I brought her. She remembered when she failed her board exams, and I held her, whispering, "It's okay. I'm always here." She remembered the knife attack, how I stepped in front of her without hesitation. She tried to recall the taste of that soup or the exact words I said during our walks, but she couldn't. She realized she had taken my devotion for granted, treating my love as background noise. She had loved me, she realized too late, but had been completely blind to it. Scalding tears leaked through her fingers. Detected target's affection level rising, the system chimed. 70%, 75%, 82%, 90%, 98%, 100%. When the notification finished, the system made its sking sound. Humans are so strange. They only cherish things after they lose them. If she had maxed out her love earlier, she wouldn't have lost you. I tilted my head, looking at Elena curled up in the corner of the hallway, weeping. A faint, mocking smile touched my lips. After I died, her love hit 100%. Hilarious. When I sacrificed everything for her, it stayed at 70%. When I needed her, that 70% offered no warmth. When I was dying, that 70% allowed her to go to Europe with Julian. Now that I'm gone, she loves me perfectly. What's the point? Elena sat in that corner for 2 hours until a nurse approached her. Dr. Vance, you need to handle Mr. Reed's arrangements. She lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, her face streaked with dry tears. She looked like she had aged 10 years in an afternoon. She stood up unsteadily, but instead of going to the morgue, she wandered down the corridor like a ghost. She walked until she stopped in front of a familiar door. My old room, the one she had given to Julian. The door was ajar. Inside, Julian's voice drifted out, smug and loud. That guy finally kicked the bucket. Perfect. Now Elena is all mine. No one to distract her. Elena's heart seized. She froze, holding her breath. Julian continued. Don't worry. Even if Elena found out I faked the shower slip just to make her miss the surgery window, she wouldn't blame me. I'm way more important to her than Caleb ever was. Remember when he was critical and I just mentioned Europe? She dropped him instantly. He was better off dying to make room for me. Though, the guy was lucky. I thought pushing him off the roof would kill him, but he only got a few fractures. But hey, luck runs out. Missing the surgery sealed the deal. Every word was a sledgehammer smashing into Elena's chest. Her blood ran cold. The Europe trip while I was critical, the fall from the roof, the shower accident right before surgery. It was all orchestrated by Julian to kill me. And she was the accomplice. Her bias had handed Julian the weapon. A tidal wave of rage and self-hatred drowned her. She kicked the door open and stormed in. Julian dropped his phone in shock. Seeing her face, dark as a thunderhead, he went pale. Elena, you didn't hear that, right? I was just joking with a friend. Joking? Elena advanced on him, her voice a ragged growl. Faking an accident to stop a life-saving surgery? Pushing Caleb off a roof? Trying to drive him to suicide? Those are jokes to you. Realizing she knew everything, Julian panicked. He grabbed her hand, tears instantly springing to his eyes. Elena, I'm sorry. I was just jealous. I love you so much. I didn't want you caring about another man. Please, forgive me just this once. Looking at his pitiful act, Elena felt nothing but revulsion. She thought of my cold body of my despair falling from the roof. This is murder, she said. She pulled out her phone and dialed 911, putting it on speaker. Police? I want to report an attempted murder and homicide. Julian collapsed on the floor, screaming. Elena, you can't. After all these years, even if I hurt him, you let it happen. You prioritized me every time. You treated him like garbage when he was alive. Don't pretend to be the grieving widow now. You killed him as much as I did. Elena flinched as if struck. She gripped the phone until her knuckles turned white. Finally, she whispered, "I know, and I will pay for my sins." The police arrived and dragged Julian away in handcuffs. He glared at her with venomous hatred. Elena stood in the empty room, feeling dead inside. Tears rolled down her face again. "Caleb, I am sorry." I watched the scene without emotion. "Host," the system said. "She sent Julian to prison. Do you have any thoughts?" I floated by the window, looking at the blue sky. It was sunny, just like the day I met her. But everything had changed. "No thoughts," I said calmly. "Sending him to jail might be penance or anger, but it has nothing to do with me anymore. Delayed affection is worthless than grass. Her regret means nothing to the dead." "Feedback received," the system replied. "Since you have no attachments left, initiating return to the real world. 3, 2, 1. As the countdown ended, my consciousness lightened. Elena, the hospital, the room, it all twisted and faded into white light. My world turned bright. Elena's world, however, plunged into darkness. She resigned from the hospital. She couldn't hold a scalpel without seeing my face, sometimes smiling, sometimes disappointed, sometimes the cold gray of death. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't perform a simple suture. She locked herself in the apartment we used to share, drinking day and night to numb the pain. She withered away, becoming a skeletal wreck. Her parents tried to intervene. She ignored them. Friends tried to take her out. She refused. She knew she was wrong, irreparably so. 6 months later, begging from her parents forced her to see a therapist. She tried to return to medicine, hoping that saving lives would atone for mine. The hospital administration, remembering her past brilliance, allowed her to perform minor surgeries. But the moment she stood over a patient, the trauma returned. The patient's face morphed into mine. Panic seized her. Her hand slipped. She severed an artery. Despite emergency efforts, the patient died on the table. The family stormed the office, slapping her to the floor, screaming for justice. Elena just lay there, weeping. This time, no one stepped in front of her to take the blow. She was sued for gross negligence and malpractice. In court, she offered no defense. She kept her head down, muttering, "It's my fault. I am sorry." The judge sentenced her to 3 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter. When the gavel fell, she looked up at the courtroom window. There was no pain in her eyes, only a calm sense of release. Perhaps only in a cell could she find peace from her guilt. I didn't know what became of Elena. I opened my eyes in a hospital bed in the real world. Monitors beeped. Nurses rushed in. The doctor smiled down at me. "Mr. Reed, it's a miracle. Patients in a persistent vegetative state rarely wake up like this." My parents were there, weeping with joy. I remembered then, I had been in a car accident, comatose. The system had approached my subconscious, complete a mission in a simulation, and I would regain a healthy body. Technically, I completed it just very late. Elena's love hit 100% eventually, the system whispered in my mind one last time. "So, mission accomplished. But because of the delay, I can't instant heal you. You'll have to do the work yourself." I nodded weakly. That was fair. In the following months, I threw myself into physical therapy. My rehab specialist, Dr. Sarah Miller, checked on me every day, tailoring my recovery plan. Her constant care initially made me uncomfortable. I felt like a burden. But she would just smile. "You're my patient, Caleb. This is my job. If you want to thank me, just get better." It hit me then. After years of Elena's neglect in the simulation, I had forgotten what a normal doctor-patient relationship, let alone a human one, felt like. He smiled at her, genuinely. "You're right, Dr. Miller. I'll do my best." As I got stronger, my bond with Sarah deepened. She was gentle and patient. When I stumbled, she caught me. When I was exhausted, she handed me water. One day, I fell during a drill, and the sheer panic and worry in her eyes stunned me. That warmth, that was what being cared for felt like. On the day of my discharge, I saw this sadness in her eyes. I didn't want to overthink it. I grabbed the bouquet my parents had brought, turned to her, and blushed. "Sarah, I know this is sudden, but would you go out with me?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded vigorously. The system chimed in. "I thought after Elena, you'd never date a doctor again." "Elena and Sarah are nothing alike," I replied internally. "I won't punish myself for someone else's mistakes. I'm not going to miss out on Sarah because of a ghost from a simulation." "Good." The system sighed happily. "You're healed. My job is done. Goodbye, host." I smiled as the presents faded. Sarah and I dated, got engaged, and soon married. On our wedding day, watching Sarah in her white dress, I felt pure warmth. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a flicker, a vision. It was Elena. She was wearing her lab coat, looking haggard and broken, staring at me with red-rimmed eyes. I felt nothing. No anger, no love. I just turned back to my bride. Sarah, you look beautiful. I took Sarah's hand and walked down the aisle. In the void between worlds, the system spoke to the projection of Elena. Viewing time is over. 3 minutes left. Elena watched me hold Sarah's hand, saw the radiant happiness on my face. Her heart felt like it was being ripped in two. She wanted to scream, to run to me, to apologize. But she knew she had no right. Her lips trembled as she whispered into the void, "Be happy." With 1 minute left, she asked the system, his heart, "Is it okay now?" I never treated him properly. I failed him. The system's mechanical voice held a note of mockery. Relax. He never had heart disease. In the simulation, he used his own points to induce the symptoms just so you would have a usable subject for your research. What? Elena froze, struck by lightning. She remembered the day she found out his pathology was a perfect match for her study. He had smiled and said, "I'm so glad I can help you." She remembered how he endured the pain of the experiments just to see her succeed. Tears flooded her face. It had all been love. Pure, sacrificial love. And she had mistaken a diamond for glass, throwing it away for nothing. Time is up, the system announced. Elena's figure turned transparent and vanished into the ether. I looked back one last time. She was gone. Sarah squeezed my hand. "What are you thinking about?" I handed her a tangerine candy from the reception bowl. "Just that you love orange flavor. And that we're going to have a really good life." She smiled. "Of course we are." The sunset stretched our shadows long against the grass. The past was a breeze that had already blown over. I looked up at the brilliant burning clouds. Tomorrow would be a beautiful day. Story complete.